Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant, where I give my in-depth analysis of pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network for your viewing pleasure. Of course, I'm not in my usual setting of where I film my videos because I left college on Monday. I am now back home, and the place where I usually filmed all my videos before I went to college, I do not occupy that room anymore. So I had to find a different room, find a different place to put my phone so I could film this video. So I hope you fucking appreciate it that I'm standing up for this video. But nevertheless, I'm reviewing WWE Over the Limit from 2011 here today. Saw it on the WWE Network 3 years removed from when the pay-per-view first aired on pay-per-view for the WWE in Seattle, Washington. So it was one of the worst pay-per-views of 2011, but I watched it on a 3-year anniversary for one very special matchup. Anyone that follows me on Twitter, and if you're not, you're an asshole, would know what that matchup is. Now I'm going to discuss that matchup here today. But even still, kicking off the show, we had R-Truth versus Rey Mysterio opening matchup. I remember, and I'm cheating here because before I even get into the matches, usually I go back and watch pay-per-views I hadn't seen before, like Extreme Rules 2009, Backlash. Like, those were exceptions because even though I was a fan for those pay-per-views, I became a fan of the product in April of 2008. Even though I was around for those pay-per-views, I never watched the pay-per-view in its entirety. I've only seen clips, I know the results, and stuff like that. This pay-per-view, I had watched live. But I thought it'd be cool to go back and watch it for this one very special matchup, not R-Truth versus Rey Mysterio, and I'll get to that, what that matchup is in a minute. But yes, I did cheat here, and I even wrote a review on it, my first ever review of a pay-per-view up on Next Era Wrestling. Just type in Over the Limit 2011 into the search bar on my website, and you'll find my written review of the show. But I am cheating here a little bit, but those that didn't watch this pay-per-view, don't go back and watch it. But that's why I'm reviewing this pay-per-view, because there was that one special matchup that I wanted to watch again, not because I love this pay-per-view or have any real attachment to it. But even so, like I said before, R-Truth versus Rey Mysterio kicking off the show. I thought it was a good matchup. Didn't really have a feud behind it. I know R-Truth attacked Rey Mysterio on the Raw before this show, so that kind of set up this matchup. It was an impromptu contest. Around this time, 3 years ago, I was not the biggest fan of Rey Mysterio. Always burying people. He never puts anyone over. Rey Mysterio really proved me wrong during his run on Raw. Wasn't his greatest WWE run, but over the course of 2011, when he was drafted to Raw, he put over a number of people, including Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Technically, he was on SmackDown for that, but he put over Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, put over R-Truth here. He put over Del Rio a number of times, The Miz, a number of people over on the Raw brand over the course of 2011. So props to him for that, putting over R-Truth clean here in this matchup. I thought it was a good opening matchup. I remember when I said, I've watched these pay-per-views live. I had watched this pay-per-view live when it happened, but I came in late. I was over someone else's house when this pay-per-view aired. I came home just in time for Ezekiel Jackson versus Wade Barrett. So I've never seen this matchup before, so technically it's not cheating. And I thought it was a good opening matchup. R-Truth goes over clean, like I said before, to build this momentum going into the WWE title match at Capital Punishment, one of the other worst pay-per-views of 2011. 1 month later. So I thought it was a good opening matchup, good stuff from R-Truth and Rey Mysterio. I despise R-Truth today because I loved him as a heel, but as a fan favorite, he sucks. But that being said, though, I thought this was a very good opening matchup to kick off the show. And definitely one of the better matches of the night. So up next, we had the IC Championship matchup for the Intercontinental Championship. Wade Barrett taking on Ezekiel Jackson. Ezekiel Jackson had been kicked out of the Corre just a few weeks earlier. So that was what this matchup was all about. And Ezekiel Jackson contending for the IC title here. I thought it was a decent matchup. A lot of people give Ezekiel Jackson shit for being shit in the ring. And while that is true to an extent, I was always a fan of Ezekiel Jackson dating back to his days on ECW, even over on SmackDown when he was with the Brian Kendrick. But I didn't think he was that bad. I mean, he had a very limited moveset, that's for sure, especially with the 6 repetitive power slams, the body slams he used to do. But the fans liked it. When he did it 5 or 6 times during the course of this matchup, at the end of this match, people were chanting one more time. I don't know if that was being smarky or if they really wanted to see him do it one more time. But I thought this was a decent matchup. The only problem with it is it didn't really have any heat behind it. A feud over on the SmackDown brand, no one was really exposed to. The Corre sucked to begin with. I actually liked the idea of the Corre when it first started. However, because they lost so many fucking matches, and they lost all their matches via DQ, I pretty much hated the stable. So that's why I don't have many fond memories of the Corre. And, yeah, this matchup was decent. Real no reason to go back and watch it again. But ended on a DQ, the typical shitty finish with Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater interfering on Wade Barrett's behalf and laying out Ezekiel Jackson for Wade Barrett to stand tall, still your Intercontinental Champion. So this whole feud was pretty much standard booking, with Ezekiel winning this match via DQ, winning the rematch via countout over on SmackDown in the June 3rd edition of SmackDown, and then on the Capital Punishment pay-per-view, he won the IC title from Wade Barrett via submission, I think it was. So that being said, this matchup was just kind of filler in the feud and really wasn't that notable. The Core lost all of their matches, like I said before, via DQ, so it was kind of bullshit. So that's why I really don't like this matchup. But up next, we had Sin Cara versus Chavo Guerrero. Sin Cara was very new on the scene at this point in time, had only debuted on the WWE roster only a month and a half before this pay-per-view. I like the idea of these two having a matchup, if only because Chavo Guerrero knew how to speak Spanish and Sin Cara knew no fucking English at all. But even that didn't help him at all, because this matchup really wasn't that great. I remember pooping all over this matchup when it first aired. Watching it back again, it really wasn't that bad. There were a notable number of botches in this matchup. I mean, I understand that. I noticed that. But the matchup itself really wasn't that bad. I thought it was fine for what it was. But it really was just kind of a prologue, so to speak, of Sin Cara's failure in the WWE. The matchup was disappointing, wasn't as great as everyone expected it to be. Like I said before, it was a decent matchup, but it really wasn't anything worth watching, really wasn't as great as many people expected it to be, given that these two are two great luchador competitors, two great lucha libre competitors, and just really didn't live up to expectations, which is kind of the mantra for this entire pay-per-view. But Sin Cara goes over here. I think they had a rematch on SmackDown, which also wasn't really that good. And yeah, Sin Cara flopped. Chavo left the company a month later, and that was that. Up next, we had the WWE Tag Team Championship matchup with the Big Show and Kane taking on the new Nexus members, CM Punk and Mason Ryan. So the thing going into this, the whole storyline going into this matchup was that tension was being teased between CM Punk and Mason Ryan, tension within the new Nexus. Now, very much like the Core, the new Nexus started out cool. When CM Punk was named the leader of the new Nexus on the final Raw of 2010, I was marking the fuck out. I thought it was awesome, but the group really bombed going into WrestleMania when Orton took out each and every one of them, one by one. Had a bunch of random fucking feuds after that, including this one with Big Show and Kane. Really didn't do anything for him. It was kind of pointless, too, because CM Punk and Mason Ryan lost this matchup. And then the next night on Raw, Otunga and McGillicuddy win the tag team titles by beating Big Show and Kane. So that was really random. But even still, though, it was what it was. It was decent for what it was, which was pretty much, like I said, everything on this pay-per-view was pretty decent. Nothing was all that great except for one matchup I will get to in a little bit. But this tag team matchup was okay for what it was. No tension was teased between CM Punk and Mason Ryan, so that was kind of the whole point of this matchup, and it didn't even serve that purpose because no tension was teased between them. The new Nexus would break up a month later anyway because CM Punk went on to contend for the WWE title against John Cena and leave the WWE and turn face, all that whole thing. Mason Ryan got injured about a month later anyway. So this whole thing was fucking pointless. Big Show and Kane as tag team champions was a waste of time. That really didn't serve any much of a purpose either. And yeah, they lost the tag titles a night later anyway, so it really didn't serve a purpose. So that was that. Up next, another terrible match over the Divas Championship between Brie Bella and Kelly Kelly. Like with the Mason Ryan and CM Punk matchup, the whole storyline going into this was the whole stalker angle, if you recall, between Karma and Kelly Kelly. And a lot of people, myself included, thought she would show up here, either cost Kelly Kelly the title or Kelly Kelly would win the championship and then go on to defend against Karma. Karma didn't make an appearance here at all, and I think as we would find out the next night on Raw, or maybe the week later, I think it was the next night, I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, I think it was the next night, that Karma would reveal to be pregnant, so she couldn't interfere even if she wanted to, I don't think. So that was the whole storyline behind that, but you take away Karma from this whole thing, it was a piece of shit. The matchup was not great at all. Very bad matchup for what it was. Brie Bella, I mean, they've improved in the ring over the last year since they returned to the WWE, but at this point in time, 3 years ago, they were terrible, as was Kelly Kelly. You put them in the ring for a 4-minute matchup, garbage, no one cared, Brie retains. The whole purpose of this matchup was destroyed when Karma didn't show up. No new champion was crowned until a month later when Kelly Kelly beat Brie Bella for the title on an episode of Raw. So that was that. And, yeah, terrible matchup. So up next, this is the match that I wanted to go back and see. The matchup you've all been waiting for, Randy Orton versus Christian for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, it's very well documented that Randy Orton versus Christian is one of my personal favorite feuds of all time. They had one of the best feuds of 2011, one of the best feuds in recent years over on the SmackDown brand. A series of great matches, but of every matchup they had over the course of the summer of 2011, this was by far my favorite. I mean, SummerSlam is definitely up there, but I thought this was the best matchup between the two, in my personal opinion. It's all subjective, but I thought this was their best matchup. Highly underrated. Both were fan favorites still. Christian didn't turn heel until a couple weeks later. Christian and Orton having a very, very good matchup for the World Heavyweight Championship here. Only got about 16 minutes. I would have hoped it would have gotten a little bit more time than that, at least 20 minutes, especially if the I Quit match got more time than this. But a lot of high-paced, electric action, very entertaining action, great chemistry between Orton and Christian. I mean, that was really, we knew that from the very first matchup that they had together on SmackDown when Orton initially beat Christian for the world title on the May 6th, I think it was the 6th edition, of SmackDown in 2011. So I knew the rematch would be great, and it superseded my expectations of being even better than their first encounter on SmackDown. Great match, by far one of my favorite matches, I would say, of all time. Honestly, I think that I might just have an attachment to this feud, that it is one of my favorite feuds and matches of all time. But I love this matchup so much that if you want to go back and watch this pay-per-view, and I'll get to this in a little bit, but the only one match worth watching from this show is definitely Orton versus Christian. Fantastic stuff. I love the finish, too, because Orton is going for the RKO, and then I think he I don't know if it was, it's really hard to describe without showing it, but Orton's going for the RKO, and then he transfers it into, or he reverses it into a backdrop bottom. Christian goes back, lands on his feet. Orton hits the RKO anyway. Beautiful finish. Almost as beautiful as the initial finish when Christian was jumping off on the top rope. Orton hit the RKO to win the world title 3 weeks earlier. But the match itself was great afterwards. Christian showing a sign of respect by shaking the hand of Randy Orton, but would only turn heel a few weeks later. So like I said, really kind of planted the seeds for the Christian heel turn, set up the whole feud between the two in coming months. But yeah, really love this matchup. Love this feud. Go back and watch this matchup. Great stuff from Orton and Christian. Up next, we had one of the worst feuds. So we go from one of the best feuds of 2011 to one of, if not the worst feud of 2011 between Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole. So, and I'll get to my rant on the feud in a minute, but I'll talk about the matchup. Before the matchup, Michael Cole was just bitching and whining about having athlete's foot. I'm pretty sure it was fake, he said in an interview, and it was, obviously. I mean, it's WWE. But showing off his athlete's foot, saying he can't compete, has a doctor's note, referee rips it up, rings the bell. Matchup only lasts about 3 minutes. Michael Cole gets maybe one fucking move in. Jerry Lawler gets the pinfall with the fist off the top rope, and he picks up the victory. So after that, it was a kiss my foot match. I forgot to mention that. So after the matchup, Michael Cole refuses to kiss the foot of Jerry Lawler, so he brings out Eve. She does a moonsault off the top rope onto Michael Cole, which I thought was pretty cool. He brings out Jim Ross, my favorite commentator of all time, so it was awesome to see him and pour the barbecue sauce all over Michael Cole. And after that, he brings out Bret the Hitman Hart, the same man, I think it was at Over the Limit 2010 too. But he was also involved in the first ever Kiss My Foot matchup between Jerry Lawler and himself. So that was a pretty cool tie-in to the past. And they made a reference to that on Raw before this matchup ever took place when they were making the rules for their matchup at Over the Limit. But yeah, the matchup only lasted about 3 minutes long. Jerry Lawler wins. Definitely one of the better moments of the show with the return of JR and Eve. Not the return of Eve, but her appearance. And then the return of Bret the Hitman Hart, I thought was also pretty cool. So that is worth watching. The match itself lasted 3 minutes, complete throwaway matchup. Couldn't care less. At least it wasn't dragged out for a fucking half an hour like it was at WrestleMania 27. Complete waste of time. The matchup that kicked off, that kicked the U.S. Championship matchup off the card that year, which still pisses me off to this day. But yeah, complete shitty feud. But here's my rant on the feud. So you put two fucking commentators together, Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole, and they weren't feuding for a month, not even 2 months. They were feuding for like 6 fucking months when Michael Cole initially cost Jerry Lawler the WWE title on an episode of Raw, I think in November, late November of 2010. And they'd been feuding on and off for 6 months leading up to the WrestleMania matchup. They had that bullshit go down to Extreme Rules. And they had this bullshit go down at Over the Limit. And to think it was one of the biggest feuds in WWE at the time is a complete waste of time. Because I thought this whole thing with Michael Cole, taking the sharpshooter and getting the barbecue sauce on him, getting the moonsault, getting the foot in his mouth, all that was done to write Michael Cole off television. But of course, Vince McMahon, with Michael Cole being his voice of the WWE, and I say that in quotations because, I don't know. No, I mean, technically he is with J.R. Khan, but whatever. But anyway, with with Vince McMahon's fetish with Michael Cole, the next night on Raw, Michael Cole just simply apologized to Jerry Lawler, and that was fucking it. They were back in commentary the next night together like nothing ever happened for the past 6 months, and they wasted our fucking time. This is the same man that made fun of your dead mother just 2 weeks prior to this, and he forgives him, and then they fucking move on like nothing ever happened. It was a complete waste of time. I was hoping that the next night on Raw, when Michael Cole was apologizing, he would reveal himself to be the anonymous Raw general manager. Remember that bullshit? Yeah, I thought it was Michael Cole because he got so much heat from it, from doing the, can I get your attention, please, or some bullshit like that. And I quote, or, all that kind of stuff. But he got so much heat from that I thought he would become the Raw general manager, the anonymous Raw GM. Wasn't the case at all. He apologized to Jerry Lawler, who forgave him for no apparent fucking reason, despite everything that happened between the two for the last 6 months, and they moved on. Complete waste of fucking time and one of the lowlights of 2011 in WWE history as a whole. So we move on to the main event between John Cena and The Miz in an I Quit match for the WWE Championship. Now, Cena and Miz had also been feuding for a couple months, had a good match at the WrestleMania pay-per-view, WrestleMania 27. Another triple, not a good match. It was decent at best. For a WrestleMania main event, it was pretty shitty. But the matchup itself was kind of like a Raw match. It was whatever. I meant to say the feud was good, not the matchup. Sorry. So the matchup at Extreme Rules was pretty good. Triple threat steel cage matchup, also involving John Morrison, involvement from R-Truth. Good stuff there. This matchup, I mean, it was better than the WrestleMania matchup. And some people might rave about this matchup, call it good and whatever. I personally was very disappointed with this matchup and did not think it was good at all. It was not your typical matchup because there were no disqualifications. Miz had been hyping up for the longest time that he had a secret weapon to utilize in this matchup to take back the WWE title. And because there were no disqualifications, he brought in Alex Riley, so it was technically a handicap I Quit match. So they did everything to John Cena. They hit him with a Singapore cane. They whipped him with a belt. They gave him bruises. They beat the living crap out of John Cena, hit him in the head with a chair, even though they didn't really, but it looked like it. That was the illusion. But even still, so this whole matchup, Miz and Alex Riley are beating the living shit out of John Cena, which is cool. He looked dominant, he looked ruthless, he looked aggressive, which is something that the Miz rarely ever shows. So the fact that he was showing it here in this matchup was good. He was developing a new heel persona, not a new heel persona, but a new aggressive nature about him that would capture that would lead him to the WWE title. So there's that, and then he continues to beat the living shit out of John Cena to the point where it's almost uncomfortable to watch. And then John Cena, every time he says, "I don't quit, go to hell, I will continue on," all that kind of stuff, the crowd gets less and less responsive because they know John Cena's not going to quit. It's John Cena. Hustle, loyalty, respect, bitches. He's not going to quit. So we all know that was predictable as fuck. But despite that, The Miz had used the old tape recorder trick like they did with Mankind and The Rock from 1999. They did that 11, 12 years later, except this time with Alex Riley's cell phone. The crowd was pretty shocked. There wasn't much of a response to the title change, but people were looking around like, what the fuck, did that just happen? And people kind of knew it was a tape recorder because it sounded like it was pretty obvious. But even still, though, the referee finds out, restarts the matchup. John Cena takes out Alex Riley with an AA through the table. And then this was the worst part. So not only did John Cena take a shitload of punishment, and I'm not saying like he got beat up for the matchup. He took a couple punches and then comes out of nowhere with the AA or the SDF. I mean, that happens in a lot of John Cena matches, but that wasn't the case here. And I mean, he's gotten better over the years in terms of like this kind of bullshit, the Superman bullshit. But in 2011, it was at its peak and annoyed the fuck out of me because not only did he take punches and shit like that, he got whipped with a fucking belt, he got hit with a Singapore cane, with a steel chair to the skull. This guy was dead, pretty much dead for the most part. And then out of nowhere, he pulls an STF out of his ass, locks in the STF on The Miz, who taps out in literally like 3 seconds. And I know people are going to whine and complain like, oh, The Miz got beat up with a belt, so that makes sense why he would tap out so quickly. But it didn't make any sense. It was a complete waste of time because he tapped out in 3 seconds, so it made him look like a weak-ass pussy. And The Miz loses, John Cena wins. Nothing ever fucking changes with John Cena and his Superman mentality. Like I said, he's improved with this over the years, but at the time, it was annoying as fuck, and I hated it. I hated this finish. So annoying. But it wrote Miz out of the title picture. I don't think he's contended for the WWE title since, maybe one or a few times. Actually, he has a few times, but this was really the write-off for him out of the WWE title picture for a very long time. So there was that, and it also set up, because Alex Riley, it was his fault that he left the tape recorder out. So it was the next night on Raw that Alex Riley turned face. Actually, 3 years ago today from when I taped this. This will probably be up on Tuesday, but I'm filming this on Friday. But yeah, that was an awesome moment, so it led to that, so it accomplished that. But the matchup itself, I mean, it was brutal as fuck. It was uncomfortable to watch in a good way because Cena took so much punishment. But it's so unrealistic to think that this guy could pull out an STF out of his ass. I mean, it's John Cena we're talking about here, so no shit. But I mean, you get what I'm saying, though, because he comes out of nowhere. He takes all this punishment, not just any punishment, but punishment that could kill an ordinary guy. Takes the STF, mistaps out in 3 seconds, so any damage that he did to Cena over the course of the matchup, any credibility that he might have built up was destroyed in those 3 seconds that he tapped out and looking like a weak-ass pussy motherfucker. So Miz loses, Cena's still your WWE champion. We go off the show with that. Overall, I thought this was a shitty show. Could have been much worse, but I mean, going into this pay-per-view, I kind of had high hopes, which was probably stupid of me. I mean, going into it the first time, I mean, watching back, I knew how bad it was, so I wasn't like, I wasn't as disappointed watching it back because I already knew how bad it was. But I mean, compared to the other pay-per-views of 2011, especially after the Red Hot Extreme Rules pay-per-view of that year, this was one of the worst pay-per-views of 2011 in my opinion. Don't go back and watch it in its entirety. I know people go back and watch pay-per-views or just some matches from the stuff from the pay-per-views on the WWE Network. But I'd personally just suggest going back and watching just Orton and Christian, nothing else. Truth and Mysterio was good. Everything else was kind of bullshit, but the one matchup I would highly suggest going back and watching was Orton and Christian. Kind of set the stage for the rest of their feud for the summer of 2011, so I thought that was awesome. Rest of the pay-per-view was pretty mediocre at best and was pretty shitty compared to the other pay-per-views of that year. So that being said, folks, if there's any other pay-per-views you want me to watch on the WWE Network and review right here on WrestleRant, make sure to tweet me on the Twitter at WrestleRant, like me on Facebook, Graham GSM Matthews, or even leave a comment down below, and I will check out your pay-per-view, because now that I'm home from college, I got a lot more time now to do other stuff, so I can watch more content on the WWE Network for me to review for you guys. So that being said, always appreciate the support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to my rants. Always appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, all that great stuff. And to steal a great line from a man named Stone Cold motherfucking Austin, my name is Graham motherfucking Matthews, and I will catch your ass down the road.